Welcome to Altered Mates, a philosophical podcast hosted by Alejandro, Tuama and Tobias Penno. Two mates fascinated by altered states. Stay tuned for a conversational journey through the murky depths of consciousness, psyche, and the human experience. To find out more or to support the podcast, please go to alteredmates.com. We hope you enjoy the ride.
Hello everyone, Tobias here from the Altered Mates team. In this episode, Senor Alejandro and I launch into a raw recounting of a shared moment with the mushrooms, where we both respectively had a classical psychedelic experience. We start out rehashing our intentions, touching upon the question of who or which part of us is making the intention, and how reflective that is of our deepest and truest intentions. We then launch into our integration chats. Here, Alejandro tries to articulate what it is that's at the core of the psychedelic experience for him. Our conversation winds in on itself, like a meta mirror of meaning collapsing upon itself, a molten torus of lava bursting into existence at the center of the universe. And the fear, as we discuss what happens when we allow ourselves to be drawn into that vortex. What happens when we fully and completely surrender to the experience? What happens when we die? And what do these things have in common? Tuama recounts his demands of the mushrooms. Who is this? Are you God? Are you my God? As we embark on a discussion and critique of this idea of plant or fungi teachers, quote unquote, I celebrate what was one of my top 5 psychedelic experiences and put on my evangelical psychedelic hat to share a noetic encounter with the great green web of life that permeates and connects all things. In another episode coming soon, Tuama and I will have a go at an in-depth exploration of mysticism and all things William James. Stay tuned for that, but for now, enjoy this heroic dose of podcasting. It was. I remember this.
What did you have?
I had a relationship and apprenticeship with the mushroom. Preparation for future sort of journeys and learning how to have a deeper relationship with the mushrooms for that. Mm-hmm. Mystical experience was one. Just kind of open to that, whatever that may be. And then I think one of the ones that really I think was the most kind of personal and meaningful one was the one about myself and seeking clarity around identity and noticing how my sense of self is in and has been in a transition phase for quite a while, with dating a new partner, moving into a new home together, as well as a whole bunch of other things, since I started having psychedelics and a massive, transition of identity around that and kind of spending time with different people. So my social circles started to shift. Habits around drinking and eating and things like that started to shift. All these things changed, and so there's been this kind of big migration of identity, and I sometimes feel a bit uneasy or uncomfortable with that. So I guess my question or my request for the mushrooms was how can I be content with things the way they are? This is the path I'm on now, but there's this uneasy kind of feeling that I had. It's interesting talking about it now. I haven't haven't even thought about that since.
Yes. Well, when you first said identity, in my head I was like, oh, that totally came up for you.
Yeah.
But just not in
this
that
way.
way.
Yeah.
In a completely different way, in like a much broader scale.
Yeah.
Which maybe we can work into that.
Yeah.
Get to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it was helpful. And that's why I haven't thought about it since, because it's like I was shown something, like I was given some perspective around myself.
Yeah, I think that's totally it.
And then there was like a couple of others, like
zoomed out.
Yeah, like kind of being open to exploration of unconscious material, the anima, the animus, that kind of thing, and like the kind of sort of quasi-humorous possibility of making telepathic contact with someone else. But yeah, I think all of those, the first couple and that last couple were kind of peripheral and a bit playful, but that self one was my main one, plus the mystical experience, because that's kind of what brought this experience into existence. So that was my intentions.
Yep. I had some personal ones, like looking for clarity or insight into how to approach this new phase where I'm putting myself out there with a book. Yeah, and what are the implications of that, and what do I need to do, that kind of thing. And so that was something that just completely dissolved after about 2 minutes. Didn't even come up at all.
The mushrooms were like, oh, no, yeah. that's not important.
Yeah, you figure that out. That'll be fun. But then there was, it was reconnecting with the sense of the magical, whatever that means. So, yeah, I think we spoke a lot about how I'd kind of found myself, if not lost, but just like captivated again by the mundane world.
Yes.
And it had been a while since I'd kind of felt the magic.
Yeah.
Or connected with the unconscious. Maybe they're the same thing or that kind of stuff. So reconnecting.
Yeah.
Which, that did happen totally. And then there was certainly like facing a fear. In the aftermath of that super scary DMT experience, where I'd taken a lot of time off psychedelics. Yeah. And so part of this was just facing that again, and seeing if I still like them, that kind of stuff.
Consensus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I still love them.
Okay. We can still be friends.
Yeah. And certainly found that the mushroom, while I was able to go to, or has the potential to take me to a similar space as DMT, it does it in a much more gentle way. Yeah. And that's maybe something we can get into the nitty-gritty, the specifics of.
Yes. Okay. Cool. Was there anything else?
I can't remember.
Okay. I feel like there might have been, but
for the intention.
Yeah.
Maybe like one more thing. Probably as well for thinking out those Jungian ideas.
Yeah.
But again, that disappeared pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember reflecting afterwards with you. It was like, it's like the mushrooms have their intention and we have ours. And only when those two align do our intentions kind of really come to fruition. Yeah.
And I was thinking afterwards, that's almost like, am I approaching this intention setting in the wrong way?
Yeah.
That it's like I'm setting an intention for something that has very little to do with the experience that I'm about to have.
Yeah. I had a thought just then, which is another possibility, is that it's not so much that the mushrooms have an intention for you, but rather there is a kind of, the part of you, that kind of like higher self, more intelligent or inner healing intelligence, knows what you need. And it's only when you land on those intentions that are connected to that part of you that they kind of are, because the idea would be in that kind of model of looking at things that the mushrooms amplify your own kind of higher inner healer. And so it's only when you write an intention that's connected to that already does it actually come. And also when you don't write one that's connected to that part of you is like, this is not important for you. You might have thought so in your intention setting, but that's not the heart of things for you right now. Here, this is what is.
And I guess it's difficult for the non-higher self to come up with an intention because it's not aware of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The ego mind, I guess, is like, I want a new car. Mushrooms, can you please help me?
Should we get into some more specifics?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I don't know, I'm going to try to articulate what it is at the core of the psychedelic experience for me, which I tried to articulate after the experience that we had together. Mm-hmm. And so it's like at the peak of a DMT trip, this is what it's like, and at the peak of ayahuasca, and then a mushroom trip can flow in and out of it. And so it feels like I'm approaching like the center of the universe, or at least the center of my universe. And it could be that I'm approaching like what it's like as a molecule or something like that, or what it's like in the middle of the universe. But it feels like these interweaving spherical shapes that flow in and out of itself. It's like a molten core. If I imagine like the molten core of a planet, that's kind of what it looks like, and I peer into it. Uh-huh. And so with the mushroom, it came up again that I was like approaching this space, and as I was approaching it, I got like super scared. I remember telling you that it's like it came on really quick. So it's like the mushroom came on quick, and then this phase of it came on quick as well. And I was like, whoa, I only just took it. This is too early. I can't do it now. I got to work up to it. And so I backed off from it.
I have this image of you just like floating in space, just outside of like a sun or the Big Bang.
Yeah, that's kind of like that.
Yeah,
like floating towards like a black hole or something like that. I'm like, dude. But inside it's not just black, but it's like, cascading.
Yeah,
colors and shapes,
like
grinding.
Like reality or creation is happening from that center point. It's bursting out, but then feeding back into itself.
Yeah,
that
kind of thing.
Cool.
But I think what's scary is what happens if I go into it. What happens if I allow myself to be sucked into that, and
you open your eyes and you realize that you're a cricket from the year 1995.
Well, I don't know. Maybe there's that, but what it feels like is that I would be disintegrated.
Yeah,
and I think so. We talked about this a little bit, but it feels like it could be that's what it's like to die. That it's the end of my myself as Alejandro, and then the reconnection to myself as everything else.
Yeah.
As I get pulled apart. And so I guess the idea is that I can safely do that with psychedelics, and I don't know, there might be something on the other side of it that I was like, no, it's not dying. You remember your cricket consciousness. But it feels like I'm dying. Or that would be a death, I think. Mm-hmm. So I'm still working my way up to that, because I was a little too scared to fully go into it, fully surrender into that last time.
Yeah.
But it feels like where with the mushroom I could say, and I remember saying like, go be gentle with me. I think I was using a lot of religious phrases. I was like, have mercy on me. I kept saying that, have mercy on me. And it did.
Yeah.
Whereas the mushroom can have mercy, I think with DMT, it's a little bit too late. It's already happened.
Yeah.
And so I get thrown into it. And maybe I already know what's on the other side, but I've repressed it because it was too weird. And I think you've talked about this before, that maybe a DMT experience can be a little bit too traumatic. It's just in that it doesn't have to be anything bad that happens to you. It's just too weird. And then the mind's like, fuck that. We're just going to forget about that. That was too much. for our feeble little mind to hold.
Yeah.
So I was playing with that. Another thing that came up is, as I was looking at this pulsing, grinding center of the universe, I was like, are you God? And it was and I was like, yes, that's what it is. And then I was like, are you my personal God? And then I kind of got a yes as well. Mm-hmm. So I was like, this may not be the creator being or whatever, but it's like, for all intents and purposes, this is my God.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I'm deifying or something like that.
Yeah.
And I kept asking questions like, who am I speaking with? Who is this? Are you God? Are you my God? And at one stage, I kind of realized, I was like, everywhere I look, I'm going to find this. Like, this is, and I'm imagining all these scenarios. Like, I open up an envelope and it's like, peekaboo, I'm in here. Open up my fridge. Hello. Everywhere.
In the mirror.
Hello. Yeah, and I was like, behold the face of God.
Mm.
And it's just this like folding molecule black hole thing.
Yeah. This kind of like creative, like chaos energy that's just bursting reality into existence in all moments.
Yeah.
There's this idea that, Alan Watts talks about this, that like there is no past, there is no future, and like this idea that the past led to the future is a false understanding of the nature of time. And from his perspective, he reckons that reality is literally bursting into existence in every moment out of nothing. And then the past is trailing out behind it, is the kind of correct way to think about it. Anyway, that kind of your analogy, or not analogy, your experience of a kind of God reminds me of that bursting, kind of folding.
Yeah, the idea, like it's eternal. It always is. It's moving constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's a kind of machine that, what's it called when there's a machine that it propels itself?
Oh, you mean like the kind of an impossible machine? Yes, like a self-perpetuating.
Yeah,
like
there's
a perpetual motion machine. Or
that kind of
like
it's kind of like that.
Yeah,
just at the center, that's it's whirring.
Yeah.
All right, I got more later, but you go now.
Okay, all right.
I'm just giving my laptop some amphetamines.
Okay. Oh, so it doesn't fall asleep.
To stop it from going to sleep.
We can track ourselves. Okay. So...
Even machines need drugs.
Hang on. My notes just disappeared. So, my experience was one of the most profound psychedelic experiences that I've had.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, top 5, I reckon. And, like, I've ran it by a few people now, and, like, there is this kind of sense in myself of, like, an evangelical kind of mystical experience that I've had, or I have become evangelical from it, a little bit, a bit like how I was after my first ayahuasca experience.
I was going to say, because you're already, like... on the evangelical spectrum.
That's right. So this kind of like brought that on, strong, and in an experience that was very like kind of archetypal of the mushrooms. I think from having shared it to a few people, they're like, oh yeah, that seems to be like a really common thing. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting to group myself in that now. That shared kind of experience of the mushrooms. And the way I reflected on it, like, I had this, it was amazing. I kind of, it gradually came on. It wasn't scary. I seem to have got to a place with the mushrooms where mostly I'm not scared anymore, which is really nice.
Must be nice.
But I'm like tentative about saying that. I don't want to test that too much. But I think having a relationship with the mushrooms where I'm like, please, asking them, requesting from them what it is that I want, rather than just treating it as an experience with a substance. I think that helps a lot for me. And so anyway, I experienced entering these different rooms, if you will, of my mind, where in each room I was totally enamored and captivated by whatever was there in front of me. In one case, it was like a beautiful flower in like the most intricate detail. It was like floating in 3-dimensional black space. And it was just the flower with all its vibrant kind of colors against that black backdrop. And I was just like, whoa.
Do you remember what kind of flower it was?
Like a protea kind of esque flower, and pink. But not a real flower, I don't think.
Okay.
Or maybe it was, actually. I shouldn't say that. I don't know my flowers very well. I should think about that. Maybe there's some significance there.
We were sending a message.
No, but I think the opposite is true, because I think that with each of these rooms that I went into, it was a trick.
Sweet.
The mushrooms were tricking me. And in each room there was something in the corner of my eye, which I suspect was there the whole time, but which I only noticed after a certain amount of time. And that was my task in each room, was to notice the thing in the corner of my eye. And as soon as I noticed it, it was like my whole experience, it was just like somebody grabbed me from my legs and grabbed me from my head and twisted me 90 degrees. And I got flooded with like electrical impulses, like a reward, like, well, you got it, you passed the test. And then all of a sudden I was in a different room, and I'd forgotten what had happened.
Yes.
Or mostly forgotten what had happened, or didn't quite fully understand that this was the pattern, and it was like trying to teach me to notice that thing in the corner of my mind.
And not be drawn too much into the beauty of the thing presented to you.
Yeah.
Not get distracted by it.
Yeah, that's it. And I think the way I reflect on it now was that this was the mushroom toying with my ego, right? My ego and mind seems to believe that it is all that there is, and there can't be anything else outside of that awareness. Like that, in a way, the whole world, as seen and experienced by me, is a construct of my mind. And that's all that there is for me in this life. And it felt like it was interrupting that kind of self-fulfilling belief of the ego mind, and going, hey, there's something in the corner here, something outside of on the periphery of your awareness. And, in some instances, it really felt like a train, kind of hit me with this awareness of this other thing, like something outside of myself was bombarding me with an impulse. So it really felt like there was something outside of me. And at some point it was building, and I think there was a part of me that knew that it was building to this potential like ego death, like complete loss of myself. And I think that's what the mushrooms were kind of warming me up to. And at one point, one of the things that I saw in the corner of my eye was like a bug, and it scurried away. And then I followed it, and I went like through the soil, as if I kind of was underneath a different world, and I went through its soil and then emerged from the soil in another world. And then that was kind of freaky, and I kind of came back pretty quickly once I was there. But yeah, it kind of felt like it was, and this is something that I spoke about a lot afterwards with you, was I had this vision when I closed my eyes of like a green web that interconnected everything. And that what was happening to me was I was being shown that my ego mind, my sense of self, which has that core belief that it's all that there is just one of the things that my body does, and there are many others, and that the mushrooms were taking me out of that ego mind and into the web of life that my
Yeah.
body is connected to and everything else. And if even for a moment through the web to another place, but then
Yes.
back again quickly, like whoa,
To the
and then
bug.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and then, yeah, when it, at a certain point when it did build, I was like, I told the mushrooms, I was like, I'm ready for the ego death, but I don't think that I was fully ready,
Okay.
you know? And so I wouldn't consider what I experienced like a full blown ego death, but it was definitely like an ego rattling,
Mm-hmm.
like shook it up a little bit and definitely gave me a lasting impression that that's not all I am. There's more to me than that. And so I consider that my classic mystical experience.
I remember us talking about this in the afterglow, where you felt like in the heights of that trip, you could fully know that you were part of the web. But then as the mushroom begins to wear off and the ego mind begins to strengthen again,
Yeah.
it starts to put doubt in that, being like, no, all of this is just part of my creation. Don't be silly. And it's like, oh shit, is that real? No, I swear not. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's these tricks.
Yeah. It just subsumed the experience into its framework. And went,
Yeah.
that was my
It's so
creation
strong.
too.
And I guess I was doing something similar, and when I asked, like, are you God? And then it's like, or are you just my personal God? Like, and I think that was the theme of our experience, is that it is, do we get outside of our ego or outside of our self, or do it, or are we forever locked within it? And I think both of our intuitions is that, yes, we do get outside of it, and there is something external to us.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind just going back. This is a bit of a side tangent, but the idea of like learning lessons from the mushroom or from the psychedelics, it's something I haven't quite wrapped my head around, because so like in your experience, you talk about how the mushroom was almost like playing tricks on your ego.
Yeah.
That it's like, look how you're distracted by the beautiful flower. It's the thing on the periphery that you should be noticing.
Yeah.
But to me, it kind of implies that the mushroom, whatever it is, or like this intelligence, is almost like waiting for us with a bunch of like preloaded lesson plans. And so that when we take it, it's like, oh, let's deliver this lesson to this individual.
Right.
And that sounds a little silly, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. When I think
Let me reframe that. 'Cause
when I think of like the word plant teachers,
yeah.
I guess what I imagine is more like, so the plant world has a type of intelligence.
Yeah.
And their particular type of intelligence is very different to ours. Very, very different. Like and one of the marked differences is that we have a very concrete sense of self and an ego mind. So this centralized nervous system in the brain that, gathers sensory input and then, creates a cohesive experience for us. I don't know that plants have that, and I, sort of doubt it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But they certainly have a kind of intelligence, right?
Yeah.
And perhaps by ingesting them, we are sort of getting a glimpse into their world a little bit, and a more dispersed sort of consciousness. Like when I say dispersed consciousness, I mean like this idea that, plant trees have root systems with neighboring trees that interconnect, and that have like highways of communication with mushrooms and things like that. So there's this sort of kind of web of interconnectivity, which is like a brain, even though it might not create a cohesive sense of self, perhaps, but there is a hyper intelligent
like a
network that they have access to, which they can give us access to.
Okay.
And there are innumerable lessons for us in that perspective that they can give us.
So is it just that perhaps like communication we interpret that as lessons.
Yes.
So it's like we eat this plant, try to communicate with it,
yeah,
and it's just a feature of us and our mind that we interpret things as narratives and we interpret them as lessons and teachings.
Yes.
When really it might just be that the plant's just trying to chat.
Yes.
And we're like, thank you for teaching me this lesson.
Yes. Oh my God, you have forever changed the way I will use language around these medicines. I don't think I'll use teachings anymore because it's not like that.
Yeah, it seems...
It's weird. That's kind of like a bit, I don't know, like I'm a student in a school
Yeah.
room and the plants...
But it's a common way to
teacher.
talk about it, isn't it?
It is.
And I've always been a little bit uncomfortable with that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more like communication. Like my experience, you know, I have this kind of idea that the mushrooms are creatures that make, you know, they when a body rots and dies, they will use the materials for that to create new life. So they're very like connected with the cycles of life and death.
Sure.
And they live in the soil and the underground, and they form connections between trees in that sort of underworld. And so I can't help but wonder if, because that's their nature, that when we eat them and they try to communicate with us, we learn things about that world of theirs, you know,
Yeah.
the underground, the unseen, the implicit, life and death. And of course, that we are not just our ego, that we are also part of the web that they're perhaps more intimately connected with naturally, because that's how they roll. That's just their way of living. And it's not a lesson, it's just a glimpse into their world, which, you know, is often useful for us to live a better life, but they're not necessarily trying to teach us. I mean, maybe they are.
Maybe they are, yeah.
I don't know.
We got another one. Let's deliver lesson B.
Upload program B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another... Or do you have more on that?
There was one thing that I had on that, which was a conversation that we had at the end there, which was like, okay, so, you know, both of us have had this experience of God in some way. Like for me, God in this instance was the kind of like the green fabric of all life.
Yes.
But maybe that, you know, actually now that I reflect on it, maybe that's not God. Maybe that's just the particular...
I think God is a placeholder word that we're using.
Yeah.
Maybe at some stage it would be good to define the various gods.
Yeah.
But maybe each of us encountered a God.
Yeah.
It might have been different.
That's true.
Yours was like a life of the earth. Mine felt more like the center of a molecule, or I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say was that something that we talked about at the end was that perhaps my experience of God was... Oh, that's right. I was struggling to remember it. That God... God is... that's right. Okay, so I have an experience of the mushrooms that are showing me this interconnected web of life, and I feel like I'm making contact with some sort of earthly nature, mushroom, spiritual entity or something, and I'm feeling connected with everything. By extension, I guess what we talked about was that perhaps there is this sort of source or God that underlies everything and which kind of creates everything, and that by their nature, mushrooms are more naturally connected with that intelligence, and we, by our nature, with our ego, mind, and creating like a separate sense of self in order to live and function, we're less connected to that source.
Yeah.
And so when we have an experience of the mushrooms, they are granting us access to that intelligent force, the source of things. And it's not actually their intelligence necessarily that we are making or having communion with. It's the intelligence of the universe, the God kind of thing. So maybe we both experience the same source or God, but just through very different angles. That was something that we talked about at the end there.
Yeah, that sounds good. It's moving us closer to the source.
Yeah, because it's already hanging out there.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's good.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's that for me.
We could almost wrap up. I think there's just so one thing that I was trying to wrap my head around, and it was that what I was talking about before, the moving closer to that God for me. I think what I talked a lot about in the aftermath was this idea of ecstasy. I was trying to come up with a word for what it would be for me to go into the experience.
Yeah.
And it just feels, if I was to completely dissolve myself into that experience of the roiling, rotating, pulsing God, and that it would be something like ecstasy. Like, what would my body be doing? I imagine it's just like thrashing around on the floor, and I think there's a certain... Yeah, that's right. I feel like that experience is something that I'm both chasing and afraid of at the same time.
Yeah.
That I think early on in my journey with ayahuasca, I encountered it. So I experienced this feeling of the rolling around on the floor and and it's awesome, but at the same time I'm like embarrassed and frightened of that to lose control so much and give away to it.
Okay.
That there's like one side of it is what happens to my mind, that it'll be dissolved.
Yeah.
And then what happens to the actual body that's left in the room.
Yeah.
And I don't know
Yeah.
what happens to it.
Yeah, I've seen some gnarly stuff when people kind of lose consciousness.
Yeah.
In ceremonies.
So,
I don't want to do that.
Well, but do we, why?
Well, yeah.
Is there a gift there?
I think so.
Yeah.
I want to. Like that experience, I was almost ready, but it's something that has challenged me a lot.
Yeah.
Just letting go is really difficult.
Completely, yeah.
Yeah.
And what that means.
Yeah. But even that experience where I didn't fully let go, just this like awareness of feeling like I belong to this wider system, which seems obvious, but feeling it,
That's it, right?
was really helpful.
I think we've talked about that before, that we can theoretically or hypothetically grasp these concepts, but what the psychedelic experience can offer is actually feeling it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I fucking understand.
I get it.
Yeah.
The noetic quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we'll record soon.
Yes.
When we return to that mystical experience. Well, now that you're a mystic, we can finally record.
That's right.
The mystical experience.
I'm ready. But yeah, it really helped me, I think, with fear of death. Like I'm slightly less afraid of death now, So I imagine a full-blown ego death experience could be, perhaps even more helpful again for that kind of thing. Not just to not be afraid, but also even perhaps to navigate death more intelligently.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the episode. For more episodes or to support the podcast, please follow the links in the show notes or go to alteredmates.com. Adios, amigos!